Welcome everyone to Charts Free Webinar Series. Today we're pleased to have Angie Hubert of Hot Schedules and Kelly McCutcheon of Hop Dottie Burger Bar presenting on microlearning. Welcome Angie and Kelly, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Tara. We're really excited. Kelly and I are in the same room, so we won't have any of those awkward pauses of waiting. We can actually see each other and know who's going to be talking when. Kelly and I are so excited to join all of you today to talk about microlearning. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Angie Hubert, and I'm one of the LMS solution consultants here at Hot Schedules. I support the Skooks platform that Hop Dottie uses. Kelly, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. I am Director of Training for Hop Dottie Burger Bar. We're based in Austin. I've been with Hop Dottie for 6 years. When I started, we had 3 locations, and fast forward those fast 6 years, and now next week we're getting ready to open our 33rd location. So super fast growing, and definitely in a world where microlearning is our ally. We've had to implement it and really build from the ground up. One of the first things I did when I started at Hop Dottie was we were already using Hot Schedules, and I said, we've got to implement an LMS. And after a lot of searching, we implemented Skooks. So I'm excited to share with you what we have today. So
thank you for that.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Hop Dottie. Hopefully many of you on the call have already started to hear about us. We are coast to coast. As I mentioned, we have 32 right now, but if we had this next week, it would be 33. So definitely, and growing. We are located in 7 states. And for us, it's all about the people and all about the food. So what makes the Hop Dottie burger different? Well, it's served with a side of hand-cut fries. Our buns are made from scratch every morning. Our bakers get in at 7 a.m. to start, measuring out that flour and eggs and butter. Our patties are ground in-house, and we have a lot of variety there. We do a tuna burger, turkey, chicken, American grass-fed Kobe that you're going to learn about more today. And our shakes are hand-spun there as well, and just absolutely delicious. Every good classic American burger needs to be served with a shake or a beer. So speaking of beer, what the heck is a Hop Dottie? Some of you may ask. Well, hop is for the hop in beer, that flour that gives beer its personality, and Dottie is the nickname of the Black Angus cattle that we use in our classic beef burgers. So together, Hop Dottie means burger and beer. And when it comes to training, in the 5 years that we've had Skooks implemented here at Hop Dottie, we've created and launched 120 courses, and that tallies up to 4,400 hours. And I think, Angie, were you going to chime in on that one as well?
Yeah, I think we're talking about microlearning today, and just by its definition, it'll be slightly smaller chunks of learning. But due to the length of time that you all have had a learning management system and how you've transformed training, that 4,400 hours of training has been in multiple different ways and formats and different experiences for team members. So I thought that was just a really compelling statistic, and tells a strong story for how long Hop Dottie has been investing in people and investing in training. And to that point, I was so excited at the Chart conference in Nashville a few weeks ago that your CEO was recognized by Chart with the Commitment to People Award. And I think that is a great testament to the brand and how you've grown. And as someone who lives here in Austin and goes to Hop Dottie frequently, it definitely comes through in the food and in the people experience. So wanted to highlight that and congratulate you all on that amazing award, and well deserved.
Thanks. And it just stays top of mind that you can implement microlearning and you can focus on the food, but for our CEO, it really is all about our people. And we were just blown away to be recognized in that kind of capacity.
It was very exciting. Let's talk, Kelly, about the agenda for the day and what we're for our time together. It's not a whole day, don't worry, folks. But our agenda for the webinar today, we're going to start off by talking about why would someone even use microlearning? Why are organizations focusing on it, and what really is it? And what are those key rules that you've defined, Kelly, really, that you're going to share with everyone about what microlearning is and what good microlearning is? Then we're going to talk about the risks and the challenges in delivering it, some of the experiences that you've uncovered in delivering it. Microlearning, as you've shared, is not a solution for everything. And so we'd like to give some of that feedback and guidance based on your experience.
Those watch outs.
That's right. And then how, what does success look like? And I love this piece. It's really one of my favorites because we're going to talk about quantifying success and what that can mean to a business and give some real example there. And then some takeaways, because I know how important that is to you as a learning professional to ensure that we've got some really strong takeaways. So that is what we're going to be focusing on today. This is going to be, slightly interactive, and we're going to start off with interaction. We're learning professionals. This is a chart webinar. So yes, you're going to interact and engage.
Warm up those fingers, guys, and get them on the keyboard.
That's right. So this is the audience participation portion of the webinar. We would like to get some feedback from you on what examples of microlearning you're using today. A lot of times, Kelly, and by the way, as we're talking for just a moment, if you can go into the area where you can type in something and put in some examples, that would be fantastic. And I can start to see those. But a lot of times I'm just going to speak while people are typing, and thank you so much, David, Rebecca, great suggestions there. People think of microlearning as just being digital. And one of the things that I love that you've shared so often with me, Kelly, is that at Hopdoddy it comes in many different forms, and it isn't always just digital. So I know we're going to look at some examples of that in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll share some examples, and then we'll go over, what all of those examples have in common to come up with that definition of microlearning, because it's a buzzword that everybody uses. So people may even be tired of hearing about it. You tell your boss, oh, we have to implement an LMS so that we have microlearning. They're like, I've heard it before, but we really want you to walk away with some key takeaways and some facts and statistics of why this approach works and what about the approach doesn't work when you need to take other avenues as well.
Yeah, great feedback from everyone on the webinar. Thank you so much. We had thought you could see each other's chats, but I don't think that's the case. But some of the things that folks have shared are short videos, 5-minute pre-shift learning, awesome. Examples of more short videos and in-person tasks, seasonal promotions, wine and food tastings, and then a role play back. Ooh, I love that one. That sounds amazing. So thank you for sharing those examples. Kelly, can you share some examples of different ways that microlearning is used at Hopdoddy today?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a couple of our examples to start. This is one I'm super proud of. This is a SCORM that we use for interactive content. So once we've taught you how to build a burger, the team member goes in and has to build it themselves. So as they click on each item, it lets them know if they've correctly built it in the right order. So interactive content, definitely that heavy hitter, but as we'll talk about later, has the most risk too, because it's hard to update these things. Video, a lot of you mentioned video, and I think that we almost equate the word microlearning with the word video. So we're going to explore some different avenues here as well, and things you can do even if you don't have a video department or video editing software capabilities. But we definitely think about video when we think about that, and it's because it's easy to deliver. Here's a way that we use microlearning at Hopdoddy. This is an infographic. It's a poster. Every one of our restaurants or hotels has some kind of federal, 6-in-1, or if you're in California, I always like to joke, it's like an 18-in-1 because there are 18 different things you have to teach. In a way, that's microlearning. It's taking, a lot of information and chunking it into bite-sized, accessible, trainings. Well, we took that idea at Hopdoddy and we created our own infographic to talk about some things that our teams needed. We knew, safety first and foremost, wear that cut glove. Hey, we're growing, check out where we're going, and if you want to be a part of it, do you know what your benefits are? We have a referral program, things like that. So we put that together in an infographic, printed it up, and delivered it to each restaurant. Flashcards. I mean, this is sometimes as simple as it gets, right? Just put the information in a slide, convert it to a PowerPoint, and you have yourself a flashcard. And that in and of itself is self-driven and a great example of a microlearning avenue. And another one that we use is games, right? Microlearning should be fun. And one thing I want to encourage you to think about is you don't have to create your own game. One thing that I have done in a past life is use the game Connect 4 for hosts to see which one would make the best coordinator, right? Because if you can put 4 tokens together, you can probably look at a floor chart and put 4 tables together for that large party that's coming in. But another thing I wanted to mention here is heads up. So this is a great app, and they now have a feature where you can put your own content in and build your own cards. So maybe something specific to your business that your team can play at that pre-shift lineup, or you know, as we do that that new limited time offering rollout. So something that can really live with you.
I love that. And Kelly, as you're describing this, I wanted to let you know that we're getting feedback in real time, which, you know, as learning professionals, we do love that. So please keep the comments and the questions coming. You got some very positive kudos on the infographic. I loved that too. It was a really eye-opener for me to think of micro-learning in this way and just to associate it with a different medium, if you will, and thinking about that being a poster on the wall, I can see how beneficial that would be, just getting that quick information to people in a way that's accessible, memorable. I really love it too. There was another question about getting a printout of the slides, and we will make sure that that happens, and then there will be a recording. So thank you for sharing those examples. So those are real life examples, but let's talk a little bit about why microlearning. Let's look at some statistics and some data that supports why microlearning is important and why organizations would use it in different forms and fashions. So for those of you that were at the CHART conference in Nashville, during the session with TDN2K, thank you to our friends at TDN2K for all of their data and surveys. It's always really useful information. One of the things that Kelly and I really noted and talked about in preparation for this session is the statistic that they shared around organizations, restaurants that had responded to the survey, and how it's growing that they're using a digital solution, an e-learning solution within the restaurant. I think this is amazing. So 86% of restaurants, 86% of all, you know, of all of those surveys, that's huge. But the other thing that really struck us is some of the data around turnover, lower turnover for front of house and back house workers based on them having written manuals and books. And as you and I were preparing for this and talking about, okay, well, so e-learning is increasing, but we also know how important the written word is, and you gave examples of both in your microlearning. So do you want to talk just a little bit more about what this meant to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, at Hopdoddy, we are always asking the question, you know, what is that right balance of in-person training or written materials, handheld materials, and then e-learning? And you think of that as a spectrum that kind of toggles, you know, do you go 80% e-learning and 20% materials? Do you try and go 100% and zero or back and forth? And I think what these statistics are showing us is historically, restaurants and hotels, you know, when it comes to implementing technology in our training, we tend to lag behind, but we are catching up. But something to consider is that written materials also equate to higher retention with the team. And so what does that add up to? Well, probably a blended learning approach is the best. But the good news is microlearning doesn't always mean e-learning, right? If we look at an infographic, I mean, even an email can be microlearning if it fits within the definition we're going to give you in a moment. So I think this is really powerful words of wisdom as you set out on this journey or wherever you are in the journey, because sometimes it can feel discouraging to think, oh gosh, I've got to implement all this e-learning, all this video, and you know, I'm an army of one. Well, help is on the way, right? You can take this stat to your boss and say, hey, look, maybe we don't have to convert everything, right? Let's look at that blended approach and reach all those different learning styles. And you know, when I saw this information, I thought, well, gosh, I don't just want to take the data's word for it. Let me go out and do a little bit of research. And so reached out to a couple of our restaurants and asked the question, tell me about your training experience and what really resonated with you. And two that I want to share with you. The first here is from a young lady that works in our one of our Austin locations, the Triangle, and Klena says, training videos really helped me out. It's so different from just listening to someone talk. The colors and the music made it easier to learn. Once you hear it twice in video and once from your trainer, you've got it. And she's someone who went through our training in May, so went through some of the materials we're going to show you today. And what I really appreciated from this was she spoke to that blended learning a little bit, right? The video helped, but you also hear it from your trainer as well. And of course, I wanted to reach out to the trainers from the trainer perspective and hear what resonates with them about having micro-learning as a resource. And Kabu, one of our trainers who's been with us for 3 years, said, I'm currently training someone who's under 21 about our cocktails. We've probably all been there, right? She can't taste them, but having the visuals and the online tools, she now knows how to describe them to the guest. Everyone has a unique learning style and needs. Interactive training helps us as trainers get the message across and reach everyone. So it's definitely trending up for a reason, right? And I think it's important to focus on that in the time that we have today and what you can do as a result of that.
I loved these stories. Kelly, thank you so much for getting feedback from some of your team and sharing their experience. We spend time getting feedback on training so often in different formats and, level 1 and getting evaluations and looking at exam scores and then looking at greater data points. But these real stories really they warm my heart and they hit home to me, and they're super memorable to me on the impact that this type of learning that you're creating for Hopdoddy employees and the impact that it's making. So I appreciate you sharing that. Hey, so we've told you a little bit about why, but the proof is in the pudding, as they say. And so Kelly and I thought that we would test you all to see if our assessment is correct, that we can teach something to everyone in less than 2 minutes, and that you now are going to get to experience live for yourself an example of what it's like for a Hopdoddy employee to learn how to describe one of the menu items. So we are going to be transitioning over. So everybody, there's going to be a test. I'm just going to warn you all.
Hold on, your slides are changing.
That's
we are
right.
logging in to,
Oh, sorry. We are switching over into Hopdoddy's learning management system. And within the Hopdoddy experience, team members have these bites of information, and we'll talk a little bit more about how these are created a little bit later, but wanted to start off with how someone might learn, let's talk about the primetime burger. And we know as people that go to webinars frequently that video never really works out so well, but we wanted to let you know that the first thing that a team member experiences is a quick video that has music and is amazing. In honor of the fact that we expect that that's not going to come through really strongly, just know that there's going to be some narration in the build part. Well, what I love about this, Kelly, also for Hopdoddy is you've given 2 modalities. So the video, which I gave a sample of, could call to someone a little differently and they may remember it better. Someone else might remember the build that you created. So I love that you communicate the information in 2 different ways. But let's imagine if for a moment here, and again, there will be an exam, start the clock, but let's imagine for a moment that I'm a new team member and I'm going to be learning about the primetime burger.
Yeah, congratulations, everybody. Welcome to the Hopdoddy family. We're going to dive into the deep end, though, and learn about one of Hopdoddy's best. So what time is it? It's prime time. Let's learn about it. So this burger begins with that egg bun bottom. You already know that that's scratch made in-house. And making its first appearance on a burger is a ½ ounce of our famous truffle aioli. And we have a little call out there. Next up, there we go. So it's made with mayo, truffle oil, roasted garlic, field mushrooms, lemon juice, and black pepper. And you'll notice as we continue through the slides that if you need to reference those ingredients, they're toggling up on the right-hand side there. So we've got egg bun bottom, the ½ ounce of truffle aioli, the ½ ounce of arugula is next. Arugula is a fresh leafy green with a peppery flavor. And then we have that juicy slice of tomato. 6 ounces of our American grass-fed Kobe. We cook our American Kobe with a warm red center to keep that protein juicy and flavorful. Then 2 slices of brie cheese. We always put the cheese on top of the burger so that it melts on the grill. Brie is a fancy, soft cow's milk cheese that melts in your mouth. And next up, on top of that cheese, we have 1 ounce of our house-made caramelized onions. And we drizzle an ounce of HD1 steak sauce, and that is house-made with beef, garlic, chives, caffeinated barbecue sauce, Worcestershire sauce, anchovies, Dijon, tomato paste, brown sugar, and spices. So again, that's that Kobe beef patty, the brie cheese, caramelized onions, steak sauce drizzled on top. Tastes so nice, it's on there twice. We've got another ½ ounce layer of truffle aioli. So we put it on the bottom, we put it on the top. So the last thing, we've got to top it off with that egg bun. So one more time, we've got the egg bun bottom, the truffle aioli, the arugula, tomato, that Kobe patty, brie cheese, caramelized onions, steak sauce, truffle aioli, and the egg bun top. This decadent burger is done. Well, as done as a warm red center can be, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so I don't even know if that was 2 minutes. Were you timing, Angie? So let's take the quiz and see how you do. So we've got one question for you. It's going to come up as a poll here. We're about to launch that. And we need you to tell us which of the following is the correct order of the ingredients on top of that primetime American grass-fed Kobe patty. So go ahead and enter your answers now.
I'm going to give it just a moment.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I for sure learned the ingredient order just based on how easy that, it just, it's laid out so well. And I love that it's representative of who Hopdoddy is and the brand. I love that you put your own culture and messaging into it. I think that really comes through and makes it a little fun. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how that was created, but I also know that that was not created using any sort of fancy, I mean, this wasn't fancy software or technology, right?
No, guys, that's PowerPoint. We took a camera, we put it on a tripod so it wouldn't move, and we just built the burger in front and took a photo with each a different ingredient. The nice thing about that is the team member is in control, right? I know we kind of controlled it on your end, but imagine as an individual being able to dial into that. And then if you need to rewind, you just hit the back button a couple of times and that burger builds backwards. So
I love that.
Yeah, let's see.
Looks
I know
like we had pretty strong responses for item number 1. So brie, onions, and then the steak sauce. So great job.
And then the truffle aioli on top.
Oh, yep, that's cut off in the little window there. But I think that that proves the point that we can learn something new in 2 minutes. And I'm going to guess that we don't have a lot of folks on the call that have worked for Hopdoddy before.
I don't think so.
I think going through that experience for me, the first time that I went through it really was a testament to the conciseness of the content and how it was laid out, and just really making sure that I could focus on the learning objective at hand, which in this case was to be able to describe the items in order. So I loved it. I hope that was a great experience for you all. I think we can agree that microlearning does indeed work as proven here on the webinar today.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about what it is, and it's funny, it's easy to name examples, right? We think of videos, we think of games, we think of flashcards, but what do all of those things have in common? So what are the rules of microlearning? You know, again, we said you kind of know it when you see it, but what are the parameters of microlearning? And there are 4 rules. If something fits into these 4 things, then we can pretty safely say, hey, it's microlearning. So first and foremost, microlearning has to be easy. It needs to be self-explanatory. The way that I measure that is the instructions shouldn't take longer to explain than the course takes to complete. It also needs to be self-driven and focused, right? So those things help define what makes it easy. Something I want to tell you about microlearning, some of you may have heard of Miller's Law. Miller's Law proposes that the human brain can hold, on average, 5 to 7 things, so kind of plus or minus 2 things. When it comes to microlearning, we really want to narrow that in. What is that single objective that you're trying to accomplish? And that's what helps make it easy. Next up, it needs to be enjoyable. You heard from Kaboo that you know, people have different learning styles, but everybody loves having fun when they learn. So when you make a course easy, sometimes you got to trim away the fat and leave that on the cutting room floor, but you shouldn't remove the fun. And so you just saw an example where the little call outs were a little bit cheeky, a little bit fun, and that was Hopdoddy's voice coming through. So whatever your culture, your voice is, you should make sure that microlearning incorporates that and sounds like you. So it should be enjoyable. Of course, it has to be engaging, right? So bite-sized pieces. You should consume it, then apply it. It needs to be action-based, and you should really say what you're going to do next. One thing that you noticed in the interactive build that we just went through is the last slide said, now go take the quiz and show us you got it. So people should reach the end of your microlearning and know exactly what I'm going to do. When it came to that infographic, it said, scan here to learn more, right? What do we do as a result of having experienced this microlearning? So it needs to engage the end user. Last but not least, it has to be effective, right? So one of the things my team always hears me say is that the training and the doing have to be as close together as possible. We call this just-in-time training. When do you Google how to tie a bow tie? Probably 10 minutes before you're about to hop in the car and go to that formal event, right? When you need to tie a bow tie. We don't Google it further out in advance. One of the challenges we had at Hopdoddy was when do we teach our new MITs how they are going to train in their existing restaurants? And we were incorporating that way too early in their learning journey. So 2 weeks in, we were giving them a course on how they would own training in their restaurants, but they weren't getting to their restaurants for another month. And so they weren't able to apply that information right away. So it has to be effective. The training and the doing have to be as close together. So with those 4 parameters, easy, enjoyable, engaging, and effective, we know that it is microlearning.
Kelly, thank you so much. I always appreciate when you go through your 4 parameters and your 4 rules. A little off the cuff here as you're talking through that, and I'm thinking, do you have a personal just goal or rule in terms of time? If it goes over a certain, anything over 3 minutes is not microlearning in my mind anymore. I don't know that these rules are hard and fast, but I'm just kind of curious from your perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. Typically, it needs to be 5 minutes or less. Okay. Our rule at Hopdoddy is a little bit higher than that. We try and get the content in 90 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, that's our goal.
Awesome.
And you'll hear about a couple of examples. And that's not just teaching a burger. That's, as we'll talk about, just to plug it, that's saving the company $33,000 a quarter. What's the one thing that'll do that? So we'll talk more about that later.
Stay tuned for that. I'm really excited about that story. So now that we've talked a little bit about your rules for microlearning and why we would use it and what it can look like, I think it's important to talk about what is right and what isn't right. When we started off with some of the statistics and data from TDN2K, you had said, listen, but blended learning is really important, and we can't just take everything and put it into small pieces, right? You're not going to take your 60-minute, course, compliance course as an example, and just make it, in 3-minute chunks, and there you go, it's microlearning. Yeah. So let's just dive into that a little bit more and talk a little bit about what is right for microlearning and then what really might not work for microlearning in your experience.
Yeah, great. We did not want this to be a time together where you all jumped on and we were just cheerleaders for, yay, microlearning, it's so easy. Like we're standing on the other end of the cavern going, come on over, it's, water's great, it's awesome. No, the reality is there are some pitfalls. And there are things that are right for microlearning and things that aren't. So when it comes to what is right, if you have a single objective that you're trying to accomplish, I think microlearning can help you. If you identify a gap in performance, at Hopdoddy, this is always where we start. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? What's missing? Training builds a bridge between those two things. And a lot of times, microlearning is the right avenue for that when you have a single, very focused objective that you're trying to achieve. And I also think, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention skills development, right? A lot of what we've shown you so far is tactical development that ultimate hands-on, being able to open the restaurant, close the restaurant, work a shift, steps of service, sell a burger, focused items. But I think that skills development falls into that easy, enjoyable, engaging, effective, that it can be self-driven, and can certainly be much more effective than, hey, welcome, here's a 100-page book that we want you to read, right? Not discrediting that, it definitely has a place, but if you break down things like time management or maintaining composure, those can make great microlearning courses.
I love that. So not everything works for microlearning is what I hear you saying.
Heck no.
Can you give us some good examples of what really won't work out well in your experience?
Yeah.
What hasn't really worked out well, or do you not even, when it comes, it's on the table, you're like, nope, that's going to be, maybe a full instructor-led session, or that's going to be something that's a longer webinar or some other way of instruction?
Yeah, absolutely. So content that needs frequent updating is something that comes to mind, and we have definitely learned that the hard way. When a lot of it is about finding the right avenue. It's very easy to update a PowerPoint. You change a slide, you resave it, you upload it, consider it done. So if you have content that needs frequent updating, that might be the right avenue. But if you put a month's worth of time, effort, and energy into storyboarding, filming, scripting, editing a video, and you launch it, by the time that it's posted, that information might be outdated. And again, even with some of the videos that you saw in the course, we learned that the hard way. That we would, film somebody, and by the time we were going to print, we were going, actually, we're changing the kind of bacon that we use now. It's going to be peppered bacon. And again, easy to fix a slide, not so easy to fix a video. And so we had to find a good balance there. So things that are tried and true, your company's culture, great vehicle for microlearning if you can chunk it into bite-sized pieces, because hopefully that's not going away. But creating a video on something that's just on a clear month, you may want to consider my. And that down into I say, you say that. Wouldn't take for in this case.
Angie and Kelly, can you guys hear me? The audio is going out for you guys. I think it's cutting in and out.
Things do.
Angie and Kelly, we
need
can't
to consider.
hear you very well anymore.
Trouble. Why don't you go ahead in the question box? Oh no!
Angie,
Oh no!
Can you hear us right now? Okay, Angie and Kelly, I can't tell if you can hear us. I think the audio is cutting out right now. If you guys can call in on the phone, we might be able to continue this on the audio. But everyone is dialing in that they're having trouble hearing it right now. If you can dial in, we might be able to finish this quickly. I know we're very close to the end, but we might be able to finish it quickly on the with the phone audio.
Hi, quick check. We've switched over to computer audio. Is that better?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly well now. I think other people can too. Thank you very much for dialing in, and thank you everybody for staying on. It looks like we lost nobody in that little blip of audio problems. Thank you. You guys can pick up. I don't know if you could tell when we lost you, but it was probably like 2 minutes before.
Wow. Sorry. And thank you for the perseverance. This is an amazing group. I have no idea what happened. We were on a landline, so apologies for that. We're on the computer now, and we're going to hope that the audio is working for everyone. And thank you again. So Kelly, maybe we can pick up back from we were talking about what doesn't work in your experience very well for microlearning, and we'll drive through from there. And if we need to dive into anything else, y'all can let us know in the chat.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. Really appreciate that patience and perseverance. So we were talking about what isn't right for microlearning, and really two things come to mind. So the first is content that needs frequent updating. Now, there are some avenues of microlearning that could work great for that, like the PowerPoint example that we showed you earlier. Very easy to update a slide, save it, send. But if you spend, a month of your life writing a script, a storyboard, filming and editing a video, and it's outdated the next day, that's probably not the right avenue. And we certainly learned that the hard way. We recently switched out bacon. So we went to an amazing thick cut peppered bacon, and of course our photos were outdated. Super easy to fix a PowerPoint, super difficult to fix a video when it's featured in 9 of your burgers, right? So something to consider when choosing the right avenue. And then the last thing is, we saw that blended learning is the right approach, and sometimes things like compliance content can be challenging to deliver in microlearning content. If you are trying to move a mountain, one spoonful of sand at a time may not be the right avenue if there is a time pressure there. So as an example, right, you wouldn't want to take a 2-hour harassment certification, or harassment prevention, I should say, certification course, and turn it into a gamification or an infographic. So again, it really is about finding that right content there.
Awesome. And kudos to you for being able to go back through that without missing a beat. You are a true pro, and I appreciate that so much. There were a few questions when we scroll back through into some of the, before we had the challenge, and we will definitely address those. There was one about updating content, so you touched on it a little bit. I'm just going to put this in your mind and come back to it at the end. Okay. Around like, okay, good example. You swapped out bacon. How did you get to all the places that bacon existed? So I'm going to put that in your mind to revisit at the end. So thank you, folks. Let's talk now about some of your best practices that you've learned in terms of risks and challenges when you're deploying microlearning. So you're going to be putting this out into the world. What are the things that you've learned that need to be considered? And I just wanted to start off with, something very near and dear to my heart, which is making sure that you have the right technology. So there are a lot of different ways that you can deploy this, when we're talking about digital microlearning, specifically things like video and e-learning and even digital PowerPoints like we looked at together. And I know that within the Hopdoddy world, it's really important that a team member can go through those multiple pieces of microlearning in one cohesive experience that's simple for them to interact with. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about initially, and then we'll dive into some more, which really was around the technology and making sure that let's say if you're using a learning management system, that the solution can support multiple different types of pieces of content in one course experience, if you will. So is there anything you'd like to add there?
Absolutely. That is certainly a selling feature for us to be able to, as you saw, we had 2 objectives to train with the burger, right? We used the video to sell it. We used the PowerPoint to build it. And we didn't start there. We were going to have a single video, and we kind of reached our edge of, ooh, it's getting longer than 90 seconds. And we realized we need a different avenue. We need the team to be able to go at their own pace. One of the scariest things in the microlearning world is a blank canvas, knowing where to start. having so many ideas and, feeling paralyzed. And I've been there, my team has been there. And I think that, starting with a single step, choosing, what is that one thing we could do, prioritizing, and then finding the right technology. When those things click, you can, you're kind of off to the races at that point. And another thing, just to dive in a little bit deeper to some of the things we've learned along the way, a huge risk in microlearning is skipping straight to done. I think people think because a 90-second video is quick and easy to digest, that an infographic is easy to look at, that a game is easy and fun to play, that it's easy to create. And that's not always the case. But so you can't skip right to finished product. If you take one thing away from this conversation, take this away. Storyboard your work. Whether it is a game, an infographic, a flashcard, a video, storyboard it out so that you can visually see it. Storyboarding does three things. The first is it gets everybody who's participating on that project on the same page. They can all see it. Whether you put words down or whether you put images down, everyone will be in agreement that this is what we're going to do. Secondly, it allows you to gain buy-in, right? Even if it's a rough sketch, if you're able to show somebody, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing, then they can visualize it with you and they'll buy into it. It's a great tactic. I use it personally with my boss. Let me show you what I'm talking about, for example. And then finally, in the long run, it saves time. You may think, oh, let's get to that restaurant, let's get to the hotel, let's film it, but you're gonna end up with so much more content to edit or many more ideas to edit that it will take more time in the long run. Last tip about storyboarding, use Post-it notes. They're my best friend. I should have got stock in Post-it notes because you can put a single idea on a Post-it note and not really much else, and then you have to put them in order. And so they're free to kind of switch around. And just to start a little bit of a story about storyboarding, I had our director of facilities come to us less than 2 weeks ago. So this is a very fresh story. But when you got your invite to join this webinar, this hadn't even happened yet. And he said, Kelly, we are drowning in drain maintenance. We are spending about $33,000 a company a quarter on repairing clogged drains, and it is a problem that is 100% preventable. And I said, okay, great. Let's do something about this. It definitely makes sense. We kind of put that to the top of the priority list, and we scheduled a time to go and film in a restaurant. He was like, I know what to say. This is great. We got closer to that day, and I went back to this number 2. I said, we have to storyboard. So we turned that filming session into a storyboard day, and it was incredible to start going through, okay, now what would you want to say? Okay, what next? And then by going through that process, we actually said, oh, well, these 2 objectives are actually the same thing. We blended them together. We rearranged the order. We were able to visualize where are we going to do the filming. And long story short, we took a video in 9 hours. So from filming to finished was 9 hours. We were able to create a 90-second video on how to properly care for your drains. Not a super, sexy or exciting topic, but it's worth 90 seconds of somebody's time. So I just wanted to share that story with you. Hopefully you take away that storyboard. Moving on. I think this is a misconception that you need to use small learning to address small problems. I really want to encourage everybody here to think big. You can take big company objectives like culture and train that using micro learning. It's all about starting with that gap analysis. And so the next one is not making time for feedback. So just like not making time for storyboarding, a lot of times we think, oh, I'm going to cross the finish line and we'll be done. But everybody that participated in that storyboard also wants to participate in that feedback, and it will get better. So include that when you include your microlearning journey. And then the last one here that we want to talk about in terms of risks, I want to say this two ways. Assuming you have to create something new, assuming you have to create something new. So two thoughts there, right? The first one is assuming you have to create something new. Odds are good that it's been done. Going back to item number 2, I love talking about storyboarding. I don't have to create a video for you on how to storyboard. You can go to YouTube, maybe not right this moment, maybe once this is done, but you can go to YouTube and Google, why do I need a storyboarding, and find a great video that is 1.5 minutes long that tells you what storyboarding is and why it's important. I didn't have to create that new for you. There are already avenues out there when it comes to training on development. The world was meant for microlearning, learning development training. TED Talks, Google time management, and you'll come up with infographics and videos and things that you can apply already. And then likewise, going back to assuming you have to create something new. They may not be on your team, but there's probably somebody that you can help delegate, especially if somebody is driving that initiative. If someone comes to you and says, we need to create a video on drain maintenance, you can't just take it. I think a lot of times the misconception about training is you take it off their plate and you're going to, put on your superhero cape and take it from there. It can be a collaborative process. You can put that back on them and say, great, if we're going to do this, then I need you to do that. And that's what I did with our facilities manager. I said, great, I need you to come up with the talking points and the objective, because spoiler alert, not a drain maintenance expert here. I'm not going to be able to take it and run with it, right? We're jack of all trades. We can help facilitate the microlearning, but we can't necessarily be the expert in the field on the topic.
That's really helpful. And someone just asked a question, Kelly. Are there any occasions in which you might outsource video recording? Do you do it all yourself in-house?
Oh, that's a great question. So when it comes to Hopdoddy specific videos, we do our video production in-house. I have a videographer, and I can't stress this enough. She was going to school for cinematography. She started as an intern, loved the company, and is now, last 2 months ago, she reached her 1 year of working here. So kind of paved the way for her career. And, also the benefit of that was she was learning as she went. So it was really a win-win. But we certainly use other videos as well. I mean, everybody has that person on their team that loves sending emails out that, hey, this really inspired me and I want to share it with you. And we'll take those things and collect it and send it out to a manager on their first week on the job. Hey, watch this video, it's really inspiring. So we use a lot of other video content, but when it comes to Hopdoddy video, it's strictly ours. One other thing I wanted to mention with that, when it comes to not video, there are some things we outsource. We find independent folks to do SCORM content for us, for example, because we know we can't take it all on. And it's worth it for us when we kind of do that ROI and look at, does it make sense? Yes, it does make sense to outsource some of this content. It may make sense for you too.
That's awesome. I'm watching the clock. You and I know for a fact can sit and talk about this for quite a long time, and I love the questions. So I'm going to try to catch them as they come, not as they come, but as they're appropriate. But is there anything that you use besides Post-it notes for your storyboarding?
I'm going to be real honest with you guys. It's Post-it notes. Okay. Like my team knows. In my car, actually, this is a true story. Angie can back me up on this. The backseat of my car, I have a whole sleeve of Post-it notes. We just keep it really simple because we do storyboarding so early on in the process. When somebody has an idea, we brainstorm it out and then we go right to storyboarding. And so, frankly, I don't use a fancy app or tool. The fancy stuff comes later with the videos, but it's Post-its.
Post-its. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. Well, with our last about 3 to 4 minutes here, just wanted to talk about measuring success, and then I know how important takeaways are especially for you. It's really a key part of any session that you're in. So when we talked about how we can measure the success, and we always want to start off with that end in mind, what are we trying to impact? I absolutely love the story that you shared about your facilities director and saving $33,000 a month with 9 hours of work in a 97 video, that being the
quarter,
goal.
but yeah.
That being the goal. Oh,
Yeah.
Quarter.
Yeah.
Don't put that one down. But so I thought that was such a really great example of starting with the end in mind and considering what that evaluation is, that metric, and how you're going to get a return on investment for the time that you put into creating whatever that is. And it also probably helps you with how much time you put in.
Right.
Is there anything that you want to add to that in terms of measuring success when you're looking at something new that you have to develop?
Yeah, we at Hopdoddy, we start every meeting with what are our desired outcomes? What does success look like? You should do the same thing with your training courses and micro-learning. What does success look like? At the end of this, I want someone to be able to blink. How do you want people to feel, and what do you want them to do? Those are the two questions to ask to come up with what the end goal looks like. And when it comes to evaluating success, I know, we're trainers and our role is an investment, right? But we should take a look at what the ROI is of the video. Is success measured in increased sales? Is it measured in higher retention? Is it measured in increased safety? Are you creating an initiative on wearing cut gloves? And that's something, spoiler alert, we're working on right now. And not trying to spend 18 grand in workers' comps every year on people who cut themselves. So how will you measure that success? And it's really important to go back and actually measure that success at the end, because it is an investment. Whatever you decide to put your effort, time, and energy into is an investment that you'll want to be able to measure.
I love it. We're running out of time, so I want to have a moment to go through those key takeaways. I wanted you to walk through those, and then for those that don't have to run off and leave, we're going to go back through the questions. Great. And I'll read those off for you, but I wanted you to be able to go through your takeaways. I know how important it is.
Yeah, look, we're all operators at heart, right? And if all we do is walk away from this going, oh, that was kind of cool, then okay, that's one thing. But I really want you to be able to hit the ground running with this wherever you are in your micro-learning journey. And one thing about micro-learning is you should always have time to say things twice, but the second time should be faster. So on this slide, I'm just going to hit on these points. Start with the gap. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? How can you bridge the gap? How will you measure success? What does success look like? What will people be able to do, and how will they feel? Who will you leverage to help? How can you hold up that mirror and say, I can't just put on my cape and deliver it for you, but I need you to bring this to the table, and then we'll go from there. Storyboard. Make sure you incorporate time for feedback. It is an important part of the process and helps create that finished product that you're going to be proud of. And then last but not least, when all is said and done and implemented and you step back, don't forget to go back and evaluate success. We recently launched a menu rollout, and we're going back 30 days later and visiting the restaurants and seeing, are they doing the things that we said we were doing? We're going to measure a change in behavior and evaluate the success of the course that we implemented. So evaluate that success.
It's awesome. I hope everyone on the webinar today has really gotten some great information and some takeaways, and is thinking about one gap at their organization that they want to take on as an outcome of this webinar. I think that would just make Kelly and I so incredibly happy to know that you are taking some bit of information from today and focusing on a gap that you can address with microlearning. We do want to encourage you, we're going to go through the questions in a minute, but hey, thank you so much for those of you that made it through. Everyone that was still here made it through the glitch in audio. Thank you for that. You all are amazing, and we appreciate the questions. Please connect with us on LinkedIn, put our information there. And Kelly, really wanted to go back just to hit on a couple of the questions, the questions that came in. So first off, just a quick one. What's the structure of your training organization? What does the org chart look like? You're the director of training.
Yeah, so training reports up through operations in our company. My boss is the COO, and then I have 5 people on my team, and we're growing. So I have a videographer, and then I have regional training directors who divvy up the company and have a certain number of restaurants that they visit, conduct audits, and so on. And That's it. We're pretty scrappy.
Yeah, you are.
5 people, including myself, by the way.
I want to go back to updating, and I was very purposeful about bringing this question up to you so you had a moment to just plant that seed in your brain, because it's a big one. When there's menu changes, and we talked about, thinking of the right technology for microlearning and how often is it going to be updated, any words of wisdom that you can share around how you keep straight what needs updated when. If you change one ingredient, you go to black peppered bacon, if I got that right. And now all you have to find all the places. Any words of wisdom there?
Absolutely. It's a domino effect, right? Like we have all been there and went, and it's in line check, and it's in this document, and it's in this poster, and it's, on this video. And so we do 2 things. First and foremost, training is the sole source of truth for our documentations. So our culinary guys do not have the authority to change a recipe. They can instigate a change in recipe, and likewise, I don't have the authority to edit a recipe without their approval. So it's a symbiotic relationship there, but as the single source of truth, everyone knows that if it didn't come from the training department, then it's not legit. But in terms of organization, I love that question, right? Because we just went through a menu rollout. We use Smart Sheets as our file sharing, and in our Smart Sheets, we have a documentation with all of the current collateral, and that helps us know, okay, everything, to consider. It doesn't necessarily say, if bacon, then these things, but it just says, here are all the things to consider. And so when we make a change, we pull that up and we evaluate it. And the last thing I would say there, because this is such a deep question, is another Smart Sheet that we keep is, what are the current tests that are going on out there? I think that's probably the thing that allows us to see around corners the most. If we have a restaurant that's testing that new bacon before we launch it, we want to document that, and so that we know, oh, this could be coming around the corner. Let's be prepared that all of these materials would need to be updated. So hopefully that helps, but I know it's kind of like, oh, just get organized. That's the answer. But,
no, it's a lot.
It is a lot, and I will be the first to admit there are times where we struggle with it too.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think you and I could probably have a whole hour-long conversation with all of our friends on the webinar about that alone. So thank you so much. There was one, do you have any tools that you use for creating infographics, or is that outsourced into some InDesign or?
No, so we do work with the marketing department a little bit, because my videographer is skilled in Adobe software. I tinker in it a little bit, but when it comes to the Hopdoddy voice, first and foremost, we've asked our marketing team to give us, what are the approved colors, what are the approved fonts, so that we can work within that framework. Because even if something is directed to the team, we want it to have the same look and feel as something that we direct to the guest. But as far as those infographics, we do create that in-house. And we have that particular infographic is something that came from our people department, right? You saw that it's probably very kind of HR driven. But yeah, she built that quite simply. I don't think she used PowerPoint, but you could build something like that in PowerPoint and convert it to a PDF. We frequently do things like that.
Awesome. We're over time, so I want to be very thoughtful about that. I want to encourage folks, thank you so much for the questions, the interaction, the feedback. If you have additional questions, we didn't get to every single one, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn.
Definitely.
You can message us both together or individually, and we're happy to share and chat more. Tara and Chart, thank you so much for having us, and thank you all for joining us on the webinar today.
Thank you both for being with us. And just everyone, as a reminder, the recording of this entire webinar will be on the Chart website later today. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.